Smash that subscribe button if you dare to step deeper into America's darkest shadows. The storm hit Florence, Colorado, just as the first alarm ripped through the night. A single red beacon pulsed above the razor-wired fences of ADX Florence, slicing through the rain like a warning to anyone watching. Something inside the most secure prison in the United States had gone terribly wrong. By the time the emergency teams reached the compound, the yard was already crawling with guards in riot gear. Their boots splashed through muddy puddles as they sprinted toward Cell Block C, a wing reserved for inmates whose names were whispered more than spoken. Every door in that block weighed nearly 1,000 pounds. Every window was barely wider than a human palm. No one escaped from Cell Block C, not even for a second. But at 2:14 a.m., an inmate had vanished. The cell was still locked from the outside. No broken hinges. No tunnel. No debris. Just a thin trail of water leading from the stainless steel sink to the center of the floor, and a folded piece of paper placed perfectly in the middle. It held only 5 words, written in small, neat handwriting. "I kept my promise. He's next." Nobody understood what it meant. Not yet. Warden Elias Carr, a man carved out of stone and stress, studied the note with an expression that didn't match the chaos around him. He knew something the others didn't. The missing inmate wasn't just another dangerous criminal. His file had been sealed by federal order. Even guards weren't allowed to say his name aloud. And the fact that he had disappeared inside a prison designed to make escape impossible meant the danger wasn't outside. It was already inside. Special Agent Mara Keaton arrived before dawn, her breath turning to mist as she rushed through the gate. She'd been pulled from another case without explanation, handed a single photo, and told only one thing: if he's out, every hour counts. The photo showed the missing inmate, a man with hollow eyes and a faint scar running down the left side of his face. Not a monster by appearance, but his past told another story. He had been transferred to ADX after 3 different prisons failed to contain him. Each time, someone on the inside had ended up hurt, not violently but strategically, psychologically, as if he knew exactly where to press to make a person break. The guards used to call him the Quiet One. Yet, Agent Keaton noticed something strange in the empty cell. The folded paper had been placed at the exact center of the room. Not slightly off. Not casually dropped. Perfectly centered, like someone marking a spot with intention. She crouched down and checked the floor. One footprint. Bare. Damp. Only half visible. "Who is the last guard on rotation?" she asked. Warden Carr hesitated. He didn't report back from the night round. "Missing?" "Missing," he said quietly. Keaton felt her stomach twist. 2 disappearances. 1 inmate. 1 guard. And a message that suggested more to come. She followed the faint trail of water down the hallway until it ended at a steel maintenance door. It was locked. Untouched. But a sliver of paper was wedged beneath it. She pulled it free. This time, only 1 word was written. "Closer." Her pulse kicked up. This wasn't an escape. It was a hunt, and the hunter had chosen his next target. Before she could say a word, the lights in Cell Block C flickered and went out completely. A darkness swallowed the corridor like a living thing. Then a faint metallic click echoed from somewhere deeper inside, a door unlocking that shouldn't have been capable of moving without a guard's clearance. Keaton turned toward the sound, gun drawn, breath sharp. Warden Carr shouted down the hallway, "What did you just open?" But she already knew the answer. Not a door. A path. One that led to something they were never meant to find. And when the emergency lights finally snapped back on, the steel maintenance door stood wide open. Inside was a staircase descending into darkness, a place not labeled on any blueprint. A place no one knew existed. A place that smelled faintly of concrete dust, and something else, something old. Keaton felt the hair on her arms lift as she stepped forward. Whatever ADX Florence had been hiding wasn't just a prisoner. It was a secret. One powerful enough that someone on the inside wanted it buried. But when they opened that hidden door beneath the prison, what they found changed everything. The staircase behind the maintenance door descended far deeper than any federal blueprint admitted. Agent Mara Keaton counted at least 4 flights before her boots finally hit solid concrete. The air down here was colder, stagnant, carrying a metallic tang that clung to the back of her throat. It felt like a space that hadn't been touched by light in years. Warden Carr followed closely behind her, flashlight trembling slightly in his hand. "This level was shut down decades ago," he whispered. "Before ADX was fully operational. We were told it was sealed permanently." Keaton swept her beam across the room. The space was wide, industrial, lined with enormous metal doors. Old, scratched identification numbers were painted above each one, but the paint had peeled so badly the numbers were unreadable. "A forgotten wing beneath the most secure prison in America. This looks like an older containment block," she murmured. "Why wasn't this disclosed in your facility maps?" Carr avoided her eyes. "It wasn't disclosed to me either." Before she could press him, a faint sound broke the silence, a soft tapping echoing from deeper inside. Slow, deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. Her chest tightened. Someone was down here. Keaton and Carr moved carefully between the abandoned cells. Most had rusted locks and barred windows covered in dust. But the last door on the left stood out. Its lock was spotless, newer than the others. Recently maintained. Someone had been using it. Keaton approached with her flashlight raised. "Stand clear," she warned. Carr stepped back as she unlatched the heavy door. It creaked open, revealing a small, empty cell. No bed, no table, no toilet. Just chains bolted to the floor, arranged intentionally in the exact center, as if the room had been built to restrain someone who could never be allowed to move freely. At first it looked abandoned. Then Keaton saw the walls. Hundreds of scratched markings layered on top of each other, spiraling in tight circles, forming shapes that looked almost like maps or codes. Some scratches trailed off abruptly, as if the person carving them had been interrupted mid-stroke. Carr swallowed hard. This wasn't meant to exist. Keaton stepped closer, running her fingers over the deepest marks. Someone was kept here long before the quiet one ever arrived. She found a final scratch near the floor, fresher than the rest. The metal was still shiny where the concrete had been scraped away. 3 letters. "He's back." Her breath slipped out in a thin whisper. This wasn't an escape. It was a release. Before Carr could respond, a radio crackled on his belt. A guard's frantic voice burst through. "Warden, we have another situation. Cell block B, 2 inmates unresponsive, and the cameras cut out again." Keaton's eyes shot to Carr. "Unresponsive how?" "No injuries," the voice said, breathless. "No signs of force. They're just staring, like they're waiting for something." Keaton's pulse hammered. "That's his pattern," she said. "He manipulates. He isolates. He gets inside their heads before anyone notices." Carr slammed the cell door shut, a wave of dread washing over his face. How could he have gotten down here? No one even knows this wing exists. "That's the point," Keaton replied. "Someone knew, and they opened it for him." As they climbed the stairs back toward the main level, Keaton felt a sinking certainty. The quiet one wasn't acting alone. Someone with access, someone with clearance, had helped him disappear. And now the prison was reacting like a living organism under attack. Doors malfunctioning, cameras glitching, guards losing contact. Whoever released him had a plan. And the inmate had already begun executing his part. When they reached the corridor outside cell block B, the atmosphere felt wrong. Too still. Too quiet. Shadows stretched long across the walls as if the emergency lights were dimming gradually, pulse by pulse. Guards stood over the 2 unresponsive inmates, both sitting upright in their cells, both staring blankly at the wall ahead. Their eyes were wide, unblinking, as though waiting for a signal only they could perceive. Keaton stepped into the first cell. The man's lips were slightly parted. On the floor beside him was another piece of paper. She picked it up carefully. This note was written in the same flawless handwriting as before. "You're running out of time." Her stomach dropped. But then she noticed something else, a smudge of ink on the inmate's fingertips. She leaned in to examine it. That's when she saw the 3rd note, taped to the underside of the metal bed frame. She peeled it off, breath catching as she read the message. He was never the one you should fear. Before she could process the implications, the overhead alarms blared again, louder this time, reverberating through the concrete. A voice shouted from down the hall. Agent Keaton. Warden, you need to get to the control room now. Someone is overriding the entire security grid. Keaton felt her pulse surge. Someone wasn't just helping the quiet one. Someone was orchestrating the entire prison from the inside. And they had just taken full control. The sprint to the control room felt endless. The alarms pulsed through the concrete like a heartbeat, the entire prison vibrating with rising panic. When Agent Mara Keaton and Warden Carr burst through the door, they found half the monitors black, the rest flickering with static. Technicians scrambled to regain control, fingers flying across keyboards, faces pale with confusion. Everything's being routed through an internal override, one tech stammered. But it's not coming from any workstation. It's coming from the old server room. Carr froze. That room was shut down 10 years ago. Apparently not, Keaton said, steady and low. Someone kept it alive. The monitors flickered again. This time, not with static. With a single image. A grainy security feed of a man walking slowly down an unlit hallway. Barefoot.
Calm.
Head tilted slightly, as though he were listening to something only he could hear. The quiet one. But as the image sharpened, Keaton leaned in. No, that can't be right. His gait was different. His posture wrong. The scar on his cheek was missing. The quiet one's face wasn't hollow and gaunt. This man looked younger.
Sharper.
That's not him, she whispered. That's someone else. The screen suddenly cut to black, replaced by glowing white letters. Welcome back, Mara. The room fell silent. Carr turned toward her, confusion tightening his face. What does he mean back? She didn't answer.
Not yet.
Keaton moved first, heading straight for the old server room at the far end of the facility. Each step echoed in the corridor like a warning shot. She could feel Carr's eyes on her, waiting for an explanation she wasn't ready to give. Not until she understood how this nightmare had resurfaced. They reached the old server room door, a thick steel slab layered with dust except for a clean handprint near the handle. Someone had been here recently. Keaton lifted her weapon and nodded. Carr shoved the door open. The room inside glowed a faint blue from a row of resurrected monitors, humming with life. The air was warm, as if machines had been running for hours. At the center of the room sat a single chair.
Occupied.
The man was bound loosely, not restrained, more staged. His eyes were open, pupils blown wide. A guard uniform hung from his shoulders. One of their missing officers. Keaton approached cautiously. Sir, can you hear me? The man blinked slowly, then lifted his chin toward the desk beside him. A quiet signal. Keaton followed his gaze. Another note waited on the desk. This one unfolded into 2 chilling sentences. You followed the wrong man. He was only the shadow. Before Keaton could turn, the guard exhaled sharply, not from pain, but from realization. A whisper left his lips, brittle and strained. He said you'd come. He said you'd finally see. Keaton's pulse slammed in her chest. See what? The guard's lips curled into a faint, unnatural smile. Who you missed the first time? A sudden crash reverberated through the hallway. Carr spun toward the door. He's still in the block. Move. They raced back into the corridor, but before they reached the intersection, every emergency light snapped off at once. Total blackness swallowed the hall. Then, a single spotlight clicked on overhead, illuminating a figure at the far end of the corridor. Not the quiet one, but someone Keaton recognized instantly. Someone she had put away years ago. Someone she thought had died during transfer. Elias Ward. A former systems engineer turned criminal mastermind, the true puppeteer she had hunted across 3 states until he vanished. A man who understood surveillance, psychology, and manipulation better than anyone she had ever faced. A man whose trademark signature was simple. He never touched his victims. He made them destroy themselves. Ward stepped forward, Hands relaxed at his sides, expression calm. "You are always the one they underestimated, Mara," he said softly, voice echoing off the concrete. "Just like they underestimated me." Carr inhaled sharply. You're supposed to be dead." Ward smiled gently.
No.
"I was waiting, and ADX gave me everything I needed." Keaton raised her gun, but Ward didn't flinch. "You looked for a monster," he said. "So I gave you one. The quiet one was never the threat.
He was the message.
I used him to open doors, to draw you back to me." Keaton felt the floor shifting beneath her certainty. "All this just to get my attention?" "No," Ward said. "To finish what you interrupted." He lifted one hand and snapped his fingers. Every alarm in the prison died, at once. Every lock clicked open in unison. A deep mechanical hum rolled through the walls like thunder. Ward's smile widened. "Welcome to the real ADX." Keaton tightened her grip and fired. But Ward stepped back into the shadows right as the corridor lights died again. The shot echoed, useless, swallowed by the dark. Then, from somewhere ahead, his voice drifted back. "You can lock away a monster, but you cannot bury the mind that created him." The prison fell silent.
Completely.
And as Keaton stared into the darkness of the most secure prison in America, one chilling realization hit her. Ward wasn't escaping. He was beginning. If you thought this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.